really excited. Oh, hi.
Hi.
Speak of the devil, just doing a brief introduction of you. So we're so excited to have everyone join us today to talk about this really, really big topic of perfectionism. I think it's something that many of us struggle with. So I'm so excited to talk to Tiffany about it. Um, Thank you everyone for joining. Before we dive in, I'm just going to do a brief self-introduction, introduce Tiffany. I'm Diana. Many of you probably have seen me and might have been sick of my face already, but I'm the CMO of the Holistic Panda. We are a discovery platform for a diverse range of holistic and alternative wellness services. So you can come to our site and book everything from life and health coaching to energy work to mind and body interventions to holistic beauty treatments. So think of us as like the Airbnb, but for wellness services. And having to join me today is InnerWork and life coach Tiffany. So Tiffany, I will pass the mic to you to do your own self-introduction, but I think we connected a few months ago. We found out that we have a mutual friend, but I think your story was so inspiring and interesting. You started in real estate, and then you found your North Star in life coach work, and you've been doing that ever since. And I think I love the content that you put out, and I think that's kind of how I stumbled upon you. Is really I came across your Instagram, and I was like, oh my gosh, she has such wonderful content, and definitely would love for her to join our community of practitioners. So yeah, why don't you do a little bit self-introduction and share your story of how you became a coach?
Thank you so much. It's my honor to be here. I am Tiffany. I am inner work and life coach. I like to say that I'm inner work and life coach because I truly believe that, your external reality is a reflection of your inner reality. And I'm here to support you, to guide you through that. And I truly believe that if everyone all live from a place of their heart, of their truest desire, this world would become a better place. So I am here to help creating that world. So that's why I'm here to do what I'm here to do.
Amazing. So today, we're diving into a really, really big topic on perfectionism. As I mentioned, I think this is something so many of us struggle with, maybe to different degrees. But what is perfectionism? I think it's something that a lot of us know. But can you explain sort of what does it look like? What does perfectionism look like?
Yeah, definitely. And it's so funny. I want to get started with just saying how imperfect this IG live has been so far. And this is like a great way to get started in this IG live. I don't know why, but like every time like my screen keeps going dark, so I might just have to like click on the screen in case you see me like doing this.
No worries. No worries.
Yeah, so essentially, perfectionism, people like to say, it's a desire or the need to be perfect. But I like to think that perfectionism, in a way, which is, first of all, it's a label of a group of characteristics, but essentially, and we coin it in a more negative manner in this sense, right? But in a way, it's an overly attachment to an expected outcome. That's how I would define it. And I like to say that because perfection doesn't exist. Like we don't have perfection here. We only have an expected outcome.
Yeah.
And when we're really attached to an expected outcome, this group of characteristics kind of end up holding us back or affecting others, affecting ourselves, inflicting pain onto others, inflicted pain onto ourselves. Yeah. Right. So essentially perfectionism here, we're talking about it. I always say when we talk about this before, there's never really good and bad. And when we define something as good and bad, then we're confined by it. But then on the other side of the same coin, perfectionism can look like detail-oriented, being super organized, pursuit of excellence. And that's all amazing things, right? But then when we're seeing which is what we're talking about on this side of the coin, is an overly attachment to this expected outcome, which leads us to fear of being disappointed, never the inaction, right? Like I need everything to be perfect, so I never am going to do anything that I said I want to do, right? I'm sure we all meet someone, or we all have experience of that at some point of our lives, or overaction, which is I'm doing everything. I'm doing everything because I
Yeah.
want everything to be perfect. I want to make sure I look flawless.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or another thing is then it can look like we not only expect ourselves to be perfect, we expect the people around us to be
Yes.
perfect.
Yeah. I'm very guilty of that. And
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
we all are. We all are, right? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, like we want our partner to be perfect, to
Yeah.
be a certain way. We want our coworkers to be a certain way. We expect our parents to be a certain way. So it can look all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
So where can you tell us a little bit about the programming behind, perfectionism? Like
Mm,
where, at what point in our life? I mean, it could probably, I assume it varies for different people, but is there sort of
yeah.
like, in a time frame in our life where that sort of belief that we picked it up, and how does culture and family play a role in programming us, to become perfectionists?
So I like how you mentioned the word time frame.
Yeah.
And in NLP, which is one of my specialty, is that we say that from the time 0 to 7 years old is when you're forming your subconscious and your conscious mind. So you're actually a walking subconscious mind,
Yeah.
right? And that's when you're really forming yourself and your identity. So a lot of things can happen around that time. With that said, that it doesn't necessarily have to be at that time. I think there are a lot of possible programming that can contribute to this factor. But to make it really simple, I like to think that it's when we, at some point of our lives, believe that but subjectively believe that um, we receive conditional love.
Yeah.
So that looks like, oh, when I get straight A, I will be loved.
Yeah.
When I dress a certain way, I will be loved,
Yeah.
right? And that love can either be your parents, that love can either be the praises from the world, it can
Yeah.
be the validation from the world, right?
Yeah,
So
even like I'm thinking, even to little kids, they get praises from their aunties or uncles, like, oh,
yeah.
you wore this dress, you look so cute. I never really read too much into those comments, but now I kind of think like, oh, actually, like you said, those praises, have like an
Yeah,
impact on the
yeah,
child. Like if I
yeah,
dress a certain way, if I look a certain way, if I act a certain way, if I eat all my vegetables, then I'm a good kid. Like,
yes.
yeah,
So it's almost like then at some point of our lives, we believe that, oh, when you fulfill an expected outcome,
yes,
you will be loved. And, when we're not aware, that translates and kind of infiltrates into different areas of our
yeah.
lives, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think the danger with perfectionism, it's like you said, it's not, it only doesn't affect you. I mean, I think obviously there's a lot of internal chatters going on and it's
Mm-hmm.
unhealthy for the self, but it
Absolutely.
affects the people around you too when you hold them to the same sort of unrealistic expectations and you're judgmental when they don't perform to your standard. It's like it becomes, yeah, it affects not only you, but people, your relationship. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely there's definitely like it's not just a self thing, it's something that affects your people in your community.
Absolutely. It's the whole inner work thing, right? Like how you treat the world is actually how you treat yourself. So the people that you see who are the most judgmental or who can be the most manipulative
Yeah.
way, they are probably super perfectionist inside, they're super critical, they're super judgmental inside themselves as well. And there may be a lot of pain inside.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really want to talk about the ego, the role of the ego, and how it can play with
You
perfectionism. And
love
you and I have
ego.
talked a little bit about it, and I think
Hmm.
you mentioned the ego is here to protect us, because I've always thought, I read like Eckhart Tolle's book, and he said, no, the ego is bad. We should not, not that we should reject the ego, but we need to integrate
Yeah.
it. But I've always thought this is something that, no, the ego is bad. Like I need to like, yeah, integrate
Kill your
it.
ego.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kill your ego. So
Yeah.
when we had that conversation and you mentioned that the ego is here to protect us, I thought that was really interesting. And I wonder, what is the role of the ego in our, perfectionism?
Oh, so deep. I love it.
Yeah, it's like a big question,
um,
right?
yeah, I think so. I like to say that, perfectionism is never really, first of all, it's never really the root cause of the issue. It's
Right.
it's like a byproduct of a deeper issue, right? It's like your fear of not being loved, for example, then leads you to have the need to want to be perfect or
Yeah.
have the need to be attached to an expected outcome. So what I like to think is ego, which in Eckhart Tolle's definition is simply an identification with form, which
Mhm.
is really, you know, side by side with perfectionism. And I think that the perfectionism side of you really comes from a place of your ego, right? Because your ego is here to protect you, and it is identified that if you do this, you will be loved. So I'm
Right.
here to protect you,
Right.
to make sure that you do this or this failure doesn't happen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it is, I like to think that in a way, a lot of the times it comes from that place of ego.
Right.
And you know, going back, we were talking about like, how do you, what then, okay, then now what do? Do you kill your ego? And I know like that's like such a famous saying. Everybody's always saying that, you know, kill your ego, kill your ego. But I like to think that when you have this energy of destroying, or this energy of like of this negative energy towards yourself, it's not very helpful. Like you're
Yeah.
not doing yourself really a service here, you
Yeah.
know? And at the end of the day, ego is here to protect you. Ego is here to serve for us to have this identity, and has saved us many, many times throughout our lives. So I like to think that instead of like treating it as an enemy, why not be friends, you know? So yeah, so I would say, instead of killing your ego, be friends with your ego, understanding why it is here to, what purpose is it here to serve, and why does it need you to be perfect.
Yeah. It
And
almost,
once mhm.
sorry, I don't mean,
No,
yeah.
I was just
Yeah.
gonna say, then once you're able to understand it, then you're able to override it. Then you're able to witness it and still do your own thing, you know, change that new neural pathway.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm no, sorry. I was just gonna say it almost
Mm-hmm.
sounds like it's whenever you feel like there are moments where you're becoming, like overly meticulous or detail oriented, or like have perfectionism tendencies, there's there's underlying needs. Like, and maybe it sounds to me you're like, discover what you really need, right? It doesn't, like, what is it, what is your the act of perfectionism
Mm-hmm.
masking? So it could be you needed, validation, but that validation, needed to come from the self and not from the other person. So whatever that need is, it's like, find out what that underlying root cause
Mm-hmm.
or that need is. What is it
Mm-hmm.
that your body is telling you? So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what should we do instead of being perfectionists? Like, should we be perfect, or is there a middle ground? And like, what is the healthy, I guess, approach to perfectionism?
Um, I
Or
think,
maybe I should rephrase this. Why is it healthy to be imperfect?
well, I like to say that because it is normal, right? Like we were somehow at some point of our lives were conditioned thinking that perfection is realistic. And constantly right now in our lives, we're still being conditioned that perfection is possible. Like look
Yeah,
at just the curated content that we have
yeah,
out here,
yeah.
all the filters
All
and
the
all
filters.
these,
Yeah,
right? So it is always happening right now where we are being brainwashed, for lack of a better word, that perfection is possible. And but then it's to really understand and honor that that is a very unrealistic outlook in life,
yeah,
and being imperfect is not healthy, is normal. Like it's
yeah,
not just healthy, like it is
yeah. It's
normal.
normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, this is such a big question, but how do we overcome perfectionism? Especially if this is something that we've been programmed since we're,
Mm.
the age of 0 to 7. It sounds like there's a lot of work that needs to be involved to reprogram that. So what are some ways that we can, like,
Mm.
help us overcome our perfectionism?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I would say, first of all, going back to my first point, I always like to look at a certain characteristic a, not as a solid, it's like, oh, this is bad, that's it. Like there's always other side of the same coin. So just make sure if you do struggle with being, perfectionism, being a perfectionist, kind of like extract what are actually the the strength that you have from this characteristic that you coined it negative, you coined it perfectionism, right? Like maybe it is you are well prepared, maybe it is you're detail oriented, you're organized, maybe it is all that jazz. There's so many good things that can come from this, and honor that and recognize that. And another thing is, kind of what you said earlier, it's never about that is only a byproduct of a bigger issue right here. So one thing that I love to do is ask yourself, call upon the part of yourself that feels the need to be perfect, and just simply ask it, like, what do you think would happen when you're perfect? What do you think would happen when you're not perfect?
Yeah.
And what is it that you really need from the world that you're not getting?
Yeah.
And how can I give that to you?
Yeah.
I truly think that the importance of the inner work is we take full responsibility of all things that we expect from the world and give that to ourselves. And oftentimes kind of what we brought it back to, the conditioning, is when we start believing that love is conditional.
Yeah.
So if that is the case in this example, then how can you give yourself unconditional love?
Yeah.
Ask that part of you, really get into your body. And that can be like a journaling exercise, that can be a mirror work that you do with yourself, but really bring that part of you and understand the history of it, right? Understand, like, who are you? Like, why do you feel like you need to do this? What do you think will happen if you do this? What do you think won't happen if you do this? And, how can I be the best support for you? And just collaborate with that part of you.
Yeah. It's almost like, because I feel like it also, I think I would just add to it also, it's that feeling of safety. Like you said, perfectionism is a sort of the attachment to an outcome. And it's thinking that, and I think it roots back from our need of being accepted and being loved. But I will also add to that, it's, the feeling of feeling safe. I feel like if I'm not perfect, there's almost feel like there's insecurity around my surrounding. And I think it kind of stems back to, the association of being being validated by other people or being accepted or loved. So there's almost that there's a feeling of being unsafe if I'm not being perfect. If I mess up, oh my gosh, with like shame and guilt, especially in the Asian culture. I feel like, growing up, we're so indoctrinated to be a certain way that I think if we deviate from that, it's like, oh my gosh, there's going to be so much shame around me if I'm not. So I think, culture has a huge, impact on this belief too. So I definitely think,
and I think then the best question to ask yourself is, how can you provide safety for yourself in a healthier manner?
So what are some of the perils or dangerous sides of being a perfectionism? Obviously, we talked about, it can be dangerous to yourself, it's with all the internal chatters, and I can assume that it'd be really. Oh, I have a question. Any small actions we can incorporate in our daily routine to work on this? If you guys have questions, feel free to drop them.
Yes. Wow.
That's a great question.
Daily routine. So I think, first of all, Janet, right? Thank you so much for asking that question. I would say, first off, by really understanding, this part of you, kind of like all the questions that I mentioned earlier, really understanding it. Because when you understanding, you're able to give compassion to this part of you and witness it at itself, right? And daily, it can be, so when what is it that you really need, that is not to be perfect, because the need to be perfect is only a byproduct. So there's something deeper that you really need. Give that to yourself every day. you know, I do this. So that's one example. So I always do this with my clients for inner safety. That's like always one of the first homework that I have is create a inner safety tool that you have with yourself that no one can take it away from you, that you are able to give it to yourself. And that can look like singing in the shower, singing in the car. That can look like journaling. That can look like having a personal space that you curated for yourself that you feel safe with, that you can always come back to.
Yeah.
You know, so whatever that is, that part that needs, make that a daily, first of all, make that a daily routine that constantly nourish yourself with what is it that you're really looking for, right? And second thing is, I really like to, I encourage people to fail forward. Yeah, I don't know if you ever heard of the term fail forward, because yeah, so when we think we fail, we like, we're done, like we go backwards 3 steps, like it's never going to happen. But failing is actually a step forward, if you think about it, because you've learned. So what is it, something that you can push yourself a little bit out of your boundary daily? That is like, it doesn't have to be like, you know, today I'm going to quit my job because today you said so. But it's like, okay, maybe it's like that neighbor that you haven't talked to, but you want to be friend with. Maybe it's like knock on the door and say hi, you know, something as small as that, where you start building a practice for yourself, that you start expanding that safety, and you start knowing that it is okay for you to make mistakes. It's okay for you to fail, right? Give yourself that opportunity to be on the other side. So then you know that you are still going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love those strategies. Can I share 2 of my personal strategies?
Yeah. No, you can. Of course you can.
For me, I actually started saying like mantras to myself. So for me, I talked about the feeling of unsafe and feeling like, you know, there might be like guilt and shame when I'm not perfect. So I would tell myself, okay, you're safe, you're protected, everything is going to be okay. And I literally, when I say it, I like go like this to my heart, and I feel safer when I say that, like you're safe, protected. And I'm like, okay, it's going to be okay. And the other strategy that I have, it's really, I try to take a humor in the situation. So if something like I did something and I messed up and someone would like point it out, I think in the past, I think I would feel very judgmental about it. And I'm like, oh my God, I wasn't perfect. I didn't do this correctly. Now I'm like, oh, okay. Kind of like, I try to laugh about it, but obviously I don't make light of the situation. If I really did mess up, I correct my mistakes, but knowing that okay, it's just all part of life. Like we're all here in this life full time to learn our lessons. We're not, I refuse to believe that we're here, you know, as like, we're intended to be perfect human beings. Like I really feel like there's just, you know, there's a bigger being out there that we really come to this life to be perfect beings. We're here to learn our lessons, right? Yes. And how do you learn? You learn by making mistakes. So
so one thing, actually, if you don't mind to add on to that, is I like, there's a little practice that I do. Actually, I learned from my dance training, because I'm also a dancer actually. And then like I learned from like my dance practice in the past. It's called like the 3-2-1 exercise. So every time when you experience something that you, either it is your own creation of something, or that you start judging yourself, you find yourself start getting into that perfectionism mindset, doing 3-2-1. So what that is, 3 things. Right away, you say 3 things that you like about yourself, 3 things that you like about what you did. So let's say, for example, for me, this IG live, right? If I were to be a perfectionist, then I could probably finish this and like totally judge and be like, oh my God, I did so terrible, blah, 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 right? So what I can do then is, instead of doing that, right away, you do 3 things that you think you did well, and really constructively compliment yourself. Like, oh, I said that part really well, or, oh, I was really honest in that, you know, just be really honest, whatever that is. And then say 2 things that you can constructively give yourself feedback for you to be better the next time.
Right. That's
a really
good strategy.
Yeah. And you finish off with 1 thing that you appreciate about yourself for that doing. So then every time you start training, because if we don't start training our subconscious mind, start building a new neural pathway, then it defaults back to our perfectionism, our judgment, our criticism. But that's the whole thing. Like whenever you start practicing that every time, then you start building trust and you start building appreciation and validation with yourself. And that's then slowly overrides your criticism, your judgment towards yourself.
Yeah, I would also add, give yourself credit for showing up, right? You're showing up in life. You're showing up, you're doing things, you're taking risks. Like, give yourself credit, honestly.
Yes.
I feel like we are so harsh on ourselves. And, I think that we don't give ourselves enough credit for you're living out life, you're experiencing, not only opportunities, but setbacks and failures. And I think we all need to give ourselves credit for showing up every day. So
yeah.
I mean, with that said, it's coming to the end of our chat. That went by so fast.
That went by so fast.
So fast, I know. And it's such a big topic too. But on an ending note, what is one lesson or key takeaway you would like our listeners to know, and it doesn't have to be on this topic, but it could be.
Absolutely. I think going back to something that it really resonates with me and relating to this topic is anything that's not unconditional love is not ours to begin with. We were born into this world just like a cute little love ball that we don't know how to judge. We don't know how to discriminate. We don't know how to criticize. We're just love. And we literally learn all of that on the way as we grow up. So those are all learned behaviors. When you can recognize that and detach yourself and just know that we are, at the end of the day, just a source of unconditional love, then all of these are not ours. It's much easier to let go. It's much easier to work through it. It's, your life becomes more exciting. So that's something that I would love to leave your audience with.
Well, if everyone, enjoyed today's session and want to book a discovery call or work with Tiffany on one-on-one coaching, you can go to our site, theholisticpanda.com, and you can search for Tiffany. She has a lot of different services and coaching programs available. You can also follow her. Your social handle is
Tiff_unwritten.
Tiff_unwritten. So follow her. She has a lot of really, really great content. And when we also did another YouTube video interview on the topic of forgiving your parents and breaking generational trauma. So if you're interested in tuning that in, it was a really good one. I actually, after that interview, my relationships with my parents have improved.
Actually,
after 3 years, that was amazing. So I was really surprised. I didn't think that was possible, especially since I live at home. But yeah, it was. So honestly,
that makes me so happy to hear. That's amazing. I'm so happy.
Absolutely. And I think it actually has improved, our relationships. And I feel like, I couldn't be happier.
Thank you.
So thank you for that session. So if you just check out our YouTube channel, it's just The Holistic Panda. So thanks everyone. Really appreciate all your support. And tune in again next week. We will have yoga coach and meditation companion Paula Nicola joining us. So thanks. Bye, Tiff.
Bye. Thank you.